Good on you, Jared. Well, he's now got 3. Alistair Clarkson to join us.
No one saw it coming in terms of that margin, and many didn't see it coming even in that result. But we gave ourselves a great chance. We play really well at this ground. We enjoy playing this ground, and we've got great support from our brown and gold supporters.
Hodge will kick a second. He does. He can feel that cup in his hands, I reckon. The best team of the modern era produces its masterpiece. They've never been better than this.
Well, some say it was the greatest of them all for Hawthorn, and their coach Alistair Clarkson's going to join us shortly to have a long chat about how it was done. Hello and welcome again to On the Couch for the last time in 2014. I'm joined by a man who had a very big weekend himself. He was the sporting personality of the year, and he also happened to present the cup to the winner. Michael, welcome to you. Can you introduce our famous guest?
Hello, Jared. Hi, Chase. A massive day for you, wasn't it?
It was a great weekend.
It's the accolade of the personality of the year, but I'm sure the honour, and I suspect you were even a bit nervous, actually.
I was. It was an incredible honour, a great privilege to be given the opportunity to present the Premiership Cup, and particularly to, Clarker, who was funny because I reckon I'd just been standing off to the side and he avoided eye contact with me, Mike, until I got up there, and then he was just, he was fantastic. And Hodgie decided to pat my head.
Was there any dialogue? Do you say anything to each
It's
other?
like Uncle Fester, was it?
No, we just had a hug and a little cuddle, and then I had to get out of the way because that stampede was coming. And I'm glad I got off there.
You've had a
quickly.
great relationship, though, with Alistair Clarkson.
It's been terrific, and I've seen him from what he started to where he is now. The growth has been enormous. He was always one that was happy to challenge convention, and he's taken the game to new levels.
Without labouring the point, you were strongly behind Clarko when he wasn't the fashionable choice for the job. What did you see in him then that made you think he could be a successful coach?
Oh, it was a combination of things, but I mean, we sat through a lot of presentations, and I reckon 5 minutes into his, I was just sitting there thinking to myself, this bloke could coach our club. The way he viewed the game, the way he thought things should run, the whole package it just ticked every box.
So was it leadership or was it strategy? Because I guess he's now famous for introducing a lot of elements of soccer, and the Clarko's cluster was back in full fashion again on the weekend.
He showed us a little bit of tactical insight as well in his presentation, which I thought was very impressive. So he stood out really as the clear choice to me.
Mike, you've seen all of the Hawk flags bar one.
I missed 1971, Jared. I was in Hobart working, Jace.
Couldn't just rip over for the day?
What, walk across the water or something? No, I was actually engaged down there. But have a look at the list of premierships. Now, there's the overall ones on the left, Essendon and Carlton at the top. Since 1960, that is a phenomenal achievement with the Hawks, with 12 since 1960. And since the AFL incarnation, there's 4 for the Hawks and sitting on top of the ladder. Jared, I've watched football for a long time. This is the most successful club in my time watching football.
Well, they've ticked all the boxes since 1960
respect,
and also since 1990, when I think now you can almost argue it really counts. The AFL, it's a totally different set of rules, etc. You've got the draft, you've got salary caps, and they're still successful. And I think the biggest issue, Jason, is 96 was the merger discussion, was it not? You've won 3 flags since then, and your membership through the roof. It's a powerful entity now, the footy club.
A lot of people have done an enormous amount of work to get the club to where it is now, and we're eternally grateful for all those involved.
Do you understand the significance of those numbers? I
hope so, and I hope everyone involved does.
But you're at Hawthorn. They've won a flag once every 5 years, or less, better than that.
Yep.
Do you ever feel, you don't feel for them, but you're conscious of the Melbourne supporters, the Bulldog supporters, the Saints supporters?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of passion in this game, and a lot of sympathy, I think, also for people that have never been able to experience those highs. And I think as a player, sometimes it's about being in the right place at the right time, being fortunate enough to be at a successful club. A lot of great players never got that opportunity, so you have to treasure it for what it
That's
is.
7 flags for you in your association with Hawthorn.
It's been fantastic. Loved it all.
Mike, I had the great privilege of speaking to Sammy Mitchell today at 3AW, and I noticed here that he took your eye, particularly on the grand final.
He's been a great Hawthorn player for quite a while, but a great player became a legend for me. I think the only thing missing from the Mitchell CV was a big grand final appearance, and he had that. And I think he is a genuine out-and-out champion of the game.
Well, his second quarter was phenomenal, had it all, but the clearance work was it was world class. There's only a few in it.
Well, Mickey Malthouse declared I don't know how many years ago, but 7 or 8 years ago, that Mitchell's hands were as good as Greg Williams. Now, that sounded folly at the time, but it was right.
And the difficulty for Mitch in big games is that he's always been the first one tagged, always the first one targeted, extra attention, physically beaten, if you like, to try and curtail his influence on the game. But I thought he was brilliant. As you said, that second quarter, you had to see it to believe it, how good it was.
Jared, I looked around, so Johnny Longmire had a look in the box at one stage, looking sideways. I think he was looking to Cameron Ling and saying,
"Where are you?"
Yeah. And he just rung on for a half an hour.
Can
and do a
someone
job on
fly
this play.
Ryan Crowley in just for a second? What about yourself, Jason? When did you know that you thought that the game was just about yours?
I thought what really stood out to me early in the game was the extreme physical pressure and the aggressive tackling that the Hawks were able to implement, and that rough-head driving tackle on poor old Dan Hanbury, who also copped a ripper from, I think it was Luke Brewster, a little bit after that, and it resulted in a Gunston goal. So the back to position, getting ready to go again, and Sydney players, including Hanbury, were picking themselves up, trying to work out what was going on. I thought that really set the tone, that hit. And it was underneath, it was low, it was terrific.
It was opportunistic, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Before we go to yours, Jared, have you seen the Clarkson Hawthorn team play any better football than they played on the weekend?
No, and I've openly said I've never seen them play better. I think they went to another level on the weekend. It's the best I've ever seen them play.
Have you ever seen the John Longmire Swans play worse?
No.
And I think we're all looking for some fight back in the second quarter. Well, I saw a scene that suggested to me it was never going to happen, and it was the steal of Brad Hill on Dan Hanbury. Here was Hanbury, who was working pretty hard, wasn't really flowing for him, and then he got out bustled, and then Lewis Jetta put in this half a chase, and I thought to myself, oh, look out, this could get ugly.
He's a hard man to catch, this bloke, isn't he? But, you know, we saw Lewis Jetta stream down that wing a couple of years ago at twice the pace he was going there.
There's been a lot made, Jason, of your speech to the Hawthorn players about the potential of back-to-backs. Now, I, as I said, spoke to Sam Mitchell today, and you won't get away with this. You've obviously had some influence.
No, look, it was just something we did a few weeks ago. Clarko just thought it'd be nice to get a different perspective from someone that had played in our last back-to-back flags to talk about the significance of what it might mean to these players. They hadn't spoken about that throughout the course of the year, and I think it was just something a little aside, perhaps, to add a little bit of motivation for them. But look, it was a very minor thing.
Brilliant preparation, wasn't it? With all things taken into account, with all the obstacles during the year. But one of the other things where we can measure, 61 tackles on average for Hawthorn in the home and away series, 71 in the finals.
Yeah, and they weren't just tackles, but they were turning.
Ferocious,
they were turning attempted goals for Sydney into goal opportunities for Hawthorn. Josh Kennedy, he was on the back of a couple of them. You see Hanbury not just tackle, but pile-driven. Jack, it was ferocious, Michael.
That's Sydney stuff, isn't it? That's what Sydney have been renowned for, and they just couldn't get the ball clear.
But I think good sides are always able to transition from home and away footy to finals footy, and that to me is one of the clear things that Hawthorn did in this final series. When it was needed, they stepped it up a gear, particularly in terms of the pressure.
We saw Brian Lake nab Kieran Jack there. What we didn't see was Brian Lake fall over. Does he ever surprise you with what he does and doesn't do?
He was about to have one of those Brian moments, wasn't he? But he was fortunate that a teammate came in just to make Jack have to run around one, and it allowed him to get back and tackle. It was really good tackle, though.
Technically, it was brilliant because he had Jetta on his inside. He was looking to handball, but the hardness was the issue, and it really did embarrass the Sydney Swans. And this is what John Longmire had to say after the match.
I thought the big point of difference was just hardness. I mean, if you're hard at the ball and you're hard at the man with the ball and you're effective with your tackles and you're working up and down the ground, composure tends to look after itself a little bit. It wasn't good, but there wasn't many aspects of our game that were good.
Pretty honest, but the question I think everybody around the footy world is asking is why. The only answer I can come up with, Mike, and it's only a theory, is that rather than set them up for a physical advantage from the preliminary finals when they had a soft hit out against North Melbourne, it prepared them for what happened. They had a soft hit out. Hawthorn had a reminder that they had to work
Your
hard.
view about that depends on the conclusion.
Yeah.
If Sydney had have won, we would have sort of said, well, they coasted through the prelim final.
That's all we've got.
No
Mike.
injuries.
We've got a conclusion. We've got to come up with a hypothesis because I saw Sydney play the most un-Sydney-like game I've ever seen.
I agree with that. Is it true they had 7 tackles in the first quarter?
Yep, I think it was 22-7, and that was really what set the tone for the game, wasn't it?
Let's look at the changes from the 2012 Grand Final, where it was Sydney that got the chocolates, and the bloke that I think was being missed the most is Shane Mumford. His physicality in the centre, along with Ryan O'Keefe. They're the two that haven't been replaced.
Well, that's not true, Jared. Mumford's on that missing list because Buddy Franklin came in.
Yeah, I understand that, Mike,
Yeah.
but he hasn't
So-
been replaced. His role, I don't think, has been replaced.
No, but he would have
Whilst
still been
Pike
there.
had a lot of hit-outs to advantage,
Yep.
he didn't have the same physicality
I agree they
around
missed
the
him, but you
ground.
can't have both. They needed to be able to finance Buddy, and he was one of the casualties of
I understand that, but we're looking for reasons why the Sydney Swans capitulated the way they did. And O'Keefe, I don't think, has been replaced his role, and I don't think Mumford as well.
Interesting thing about that list, though, is if you look at the Sydney players, they're all effectively retired. 4 of the Hawthorn players have gone to other clubs and they've turned the list over a little bit and brought other players in.
So what do Sydney do, Jason? Because that's going to be the question. After your loss 2 years ago, you moved a couple of blokes on, or you enabled some trades. Does Sydney do the same thing?
I'm sure they'll have their head around that because you have to continually improve just to hold your spot, and you've got to improve significantly to actually improve on the season you've just had. So I'm sure they'll be making those decisions over the next few days, looking at players that A, have value to get deals done, and B, players that they think can take them where they need to go, and conversely those that won't.
What about all the conjecture about Cyril during the week? Will he play? Won't he play? Should he play? Not only did he play, he started on the ground, he started in the centre square.
Yeah, and I think that was a little bit of a statement too, wasn't it? And he flew for that big mark early, which brought the crowd to its feet. But for me, when you talk about Cyril Rioli, it's as much about what he does without the ball and the impact
Like
that he
that.
can have as it is for what he does with the ball and kicking goals and possessions and all those sorts of things. Because he makes defenders jumpy. He puts enormous pressure on, and all of a sudden that, whether the pressure's real or inferred, it's there for the players.
Well, Jared Ruffhead would have loved his inclusion because he was on the end of 2 goals on the back of Cyril Smothers. We're having a look at the second one here. Langford whips it over and Ruffhead will end up on the end of it.
The thing that staggers me with Cyril, but it's the reflexes and the touch that he's got, having had 3 months out of the game.
Yeah, and I love this. It's not just the smother. He bounced up as soon as he hit the deck.
Yeah.
Look, this was a long, carefully thought out process. There's an unbelievable physical conditioning and medical department down at Hawthorn. Andrew Russell and all the physios and the doctors do an outstanding job. And they calculated this to the absolute minute to make sure he was a risk worth taking.
I think if you're sitting there, I watched the replay again yesterday, the first 10 to 15 minutes, Swans were very efficient, went inside, got a couple of goals. But at about the 15 to 20 minute mark, it just unravelled completely and mistake after mistake started to unfold. And it started with Goodsey. He ran on, trying to take the game on, poked a handball out. It was a good smother from Isaac Smith. That ball ends up with Grundy, who went back with a fly to the ball, inexplicably punched instead of marked. Then there was a goal. In the next 5 or so minutes, there was just a succession of poor moves. A missed tackle there. It shouldn't have happened. Another poor tackle, another average smother here. Attempt from Dan Hanbury ends up in another goal. These are so unlike the Sydney Swans we've seen all season.
How could you see that coming? Have a look at the scoreboard there. There's 6 minutes to go in the first quarter. and
Got away
there's
with
a goal
one
of
there, Mike.
difference.
Got away with a massive one there. And here's another one. Lewis Jetta gets pile driven into the ground.
And see, it wasn't, as you say, when that score was only a goal of difference, it wasn't happening on the scoreboard, but there was a pattern developing, wasn't there?
And
And that was all of a sudden Sydney second guessing themselves because it just wasn't happening the way it had the week
See,
before.
they don't miss their targets like that coming out of the back line normally, do they?
No, they don't. Have a look at that. It's a poor tackle. There's 57 seconds of play remaining. Ball comes in. There's a combobulation of players. And then it's just more desperate. You just see more desperation from Hawthorn, and Langford pops through a beautiful goal.
I think the floodgates were starting to creak at that point.
The clanger kick-ins also, I think, were a direct result of Clarko's cluster. It's come back to haunt them. It's not used all the time. We'll ask the man who brought it to the game about it shortly. But Sydney just could not get the ball out of their defensive area.
And they tried a few different players kicking out. I mean, Nick Malcheski's one of the best at hitting targets when he kicks out most of the time. But Hawthorn pressed right up and they just didn't allow them those easy outs. And we saw some kicks to 50-50. A short to a 50-50 is really strange. Gary Rowan would love to have that kick back. But, I mean, you don't hang him for making one error like that.
Shouldn't have been the bloke kicking out.
Well, he probably shouldn't have, but that was the build-up of pressure, wasn't it?
And then when it happens once or twice, then it's contagious, isn't
Snowballs,
it? Yeah, the no bloke wants to pick the footy up then.
And they're the numbers for what was a grand final disaster, Mike, for the Swans.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, there are one-sided grand finals, but you don't expect Sydney to be on the end of that, do you? You can expect any loss for Sydney is an honourable loss, but this one wasn't. They were humiliated on Saturday.
Yeah, they were. It's going to be a long way back from that particular area for some players, and some players will never get the opportunity again because that's just football. But for the club, it's had a fantastic era, and it's the era you would think is still unfolding.
You talk eras. What is it? Where do you see Adam Goods? Did 3 or 4 nice things on Saturday. We know how good he can be. Does he need to have a look at his future, or do you think he'll let it settle and decide come November, December?
I think the silly thing to do is to rush your decision. But if I'm Adam Goods, I'm going to sit at home and weigh up whether I can have the impact that I want to have as a player. Now, he set some very high standards over a long period of time, and the Jill Brownlow medalist, and he's done it all in this game. So he has to find a level that he believes he can contribute at that is worthwhile, A, to the team, but also sits comfortably with himself, and that'll probably dictate whether he goes on or
Kevin
not.
Sheedy was sitting in the chair. He would say, let's treat him like a racehorse. Let's give him a 15-game contract. Let's play him for 5, rest him for 2, bring him back. He doesn't have to play seconds footy. As long as he can maintain his form, then there's a role. But he may not want to do that.
Someone going to be brave enough to do that, are they? We hear that every summer. Who's ever done it? Boomer Harvey played every game and he's 36 or whatever.
Well, I think
I
think Dustin Fletcher is going to do that. Well, if he can play every game, well, then he
Dustin
deserves
Fletcher
his
wanted
spot.
to play. I
Well, doesn't Adam Goods?
It's a big Well, I'm not sure. Does he? I mean, I think he's got to sit down and let the cool light of day decide whether he wants to play or not.
Yeah, and if you're not capable of playing a certain number of games, well, then you're probably best off not playing, aren't you? If you don't think you can get through the rigours of a season. I think another real interesting point when we're talking about players and what to do with them, Sam Reid's been a fascinating player for me. He's blessed with a lot of talent. We've seen some great things at times, but he's never given us a consistent output, and he's got a body that at times has let him down. So what do they do with someone like
Well,
Sam
I've been on this for... This is not the first time I've raised this issue. Clubs trash their players' reputations. He's been injured, this bloke.
He has. He needs an operation.
He
doesn't
needs an operation.
Does he need a fresh start?
Well,
would that be good for him?
maybe he does,
Sometimes
but-
players do
but
need
you
that.
can't play league football, and particularly grand finals on one leg, can you?
No.
And it does nothing for him or for his confidence. I can never understand why they continually, the clubs collectively, continually blokes with chronic injuries.
Yeah, I wouldn't be letting him out of the place. So this guy's still got massive upside. He's got to have a knee operation, get himself right, big pre-season, and have another crack. The other option is Tommy Mitchell. I think on the back of what we saw Sam Mitchell do, I mean, that is what I think a Tom Mitchell potentially can do. I mean, there's a lot of focus on defence, but there's also a lot of focus on you if you've got the footy in your hand.
And they've invested a lot of money and time into Tommy Mitchell, so he's got to start next season, doesn't he?
He's
in their best
I think
team
so.
from round
Along
one.
with
Mike,
Zach Jones.
Can they land another big recruit, Sydney?
They can because they're very good at it. But I think they're a bit gun-shy. I mean, with the fallout from Tippett and Franklin, and they didn't get the prize they wanted.
There's been a suggestion, Mike, that they've been directly or indirectly told by head office, don't go there. Particularly when Paddy Ryder first came out, don't go there.
But if it's within the
Well,
rules,
yeah, well,
Jared,
if you
I
don't break the
understand that,
rules,
Jason.
yeah.
I'm only reporting things that I hear, that there are some people at Sydney who think they've been
Well,
warned
you
off.
know that Mike Fitzpatrick was really angry that the Swans and not GWS got Buddy.
Oh, I understand
Now,
that.
that's not his call. If the rules are in place and you can land the prize, that's your reward, isn't it?
Yep, and I think they're in a position where they're an attractive proposition for a player to come there, and if they could handpick a couple of key talents, and they've got the money with a few retiring players, and should Adam Goods not go on, there's a little bit more, why wouldn't they go
Gee,
on?
they'd love Ryder, wouldn't they?
Well, Ryder,
wouldn't?
Frawley,
Yep.
etc. There's plenty out there, but you would hope it was wrong that the AFL has warned them off, Mike, because that
Rules
would
are
be...
rules. If you don't break them, don't worry about it.
Rules are rules. Brian Lake was one that I think
Yep.
a lot of people thought was probably, possibly, whatever word you like, he was at the end of his career. But on the back of a brilliant grand final, all of a sudden he's breathed life into it.
How's he feeling coming from another club, 2 seasons, he's got 2
2
premiership
flags.
medallions.
And a norm.
That's an unbelievable move, isn't it?
Yep.
And again, on the big stage, when he looked a bit shaky last week, I think the matchups suited him a bit better than someone that was pushing all the way up the ground. And when Franklin went up the ground, happy to hand him over and let Gibson go up and run further with him. And playing on that big stay-at-home target like a Tippett, I think really suited
But
him.
he thrives on it. He loves the
Yeah.
big bodies and the challenge, doesn't he?
So did the Swans go in too tall? Because given that they had Tippett and Reid, there was always going to be someone for Brian to actually play on. Had they gone in with one less, they could have brought in a small, and then Tippett goes into the ruck. All of a sudden, Brian's got no one to match up on.
Well, they've got a flexible back 6 though, the Hawks. And I mean, Stratton can play small if need be. Spanger can swing forward. So he could have gone on to a Goods if need be. I think they always would have found a match-up to keep him at home.
I don't think they're going to change their structure for a grand final, do you?
No, they weren't. But given that he was injured, I think they would have thought
He's been
long
injured
and
for 3
hard
months,
about
Stuart.
it. He has, Michael, and he continues to play. We're going to take a break here. We've got the triple premiership coach coming back-to-back on the couch. He's our special guest after this, Alistair Clarkson.
Clarko, Hodgie, congratulations to both of you. Could you just give me a couple of words to describe Hawthorn 2014, a couple of adjectives that, as you look back, you'll think this is the hallmarks of this team?
Jeez, haven't even thought about it, mate. I'm not into adjectives and that sort of stuff. It's a special feeling, and you got an adjective for us?
I'm from Colac, mate. You're from Conniver. Probably wrong two people to ask.
Well, Ashley Brown, who asked the question, should have known better. They don't do adjectives at Hawthorn, Ashley. They do verbs. Don't think, do is the mantra. They run, they chase, they tackle, they kick, they bump, they harass, and they do all sorts of other verbs.
They win.
And they do that indeed. And the man who's been leading the charge joins us on the couch. Back-to-back and also triple premiership coach. Welcome again. We gave you a standing ovation, Alistair, when you walked in, but it's great to have you on board.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. Precious. Hey, bud.
Firstly, can we deal with the rumour over on Friday? I mean, I'm not sure why anybody would run with that same rumour that you're going to head over to Adelaide.
What rumour?
Well, Precious tried to herald that last year, didn't he?
did.
The West Coast one. So good omen. Hopefully it happens again next year.
Back home. You've had a long journey, though. Tell us where it started.
Well, it started, what, in terms of Hawthorn or?
Yeah. No, sorry, your coaching career.
Yeah, Rowdy Danaher was the one that gave me an opportunity, and Cameron Schwab at the Melbourne Footy Club back at the end of my playing career. And I was really fortunate in that first year. I didn't know whether, I knew I wanted to be involved in football and particularly sport, but probably football. And I just weren't certain whether it was going to be administration or coaching, or I wanted to go, which path I wanted to go down. And Cameron and Neil and Chris Fagan sort of manufactured this role that would give me exposure to both throughout the course of the year. And by the end of that year, I was 95% coaching and 5% admin. So my mind was made up of the path I wanted to go down. My wife wasn't all that happy with that. I'd done an MBA, and she was thinking it should have been more the administration way, but she understood quite clearly that the coaching path is a pretty volatile one, but you just got to follow your heart and your passion.
It's why I was actually surprised that you didn't come up with an adjective, because a mate of mine sent me a photo of your scholastic days, your teaching days at Wesley College here in 1994, and there you were in your finest. Now, surely you would have been to come up with an adjective given your scholastic background.
Starts with S, Jared.
Shizen.
You pulled that out of the archive, didn't you?
We certainly did. Who would have thought back then? There's probably a school teacher out there right now, Clarkos, who's aspiring to be a teacher come football coach like yourself.
Yeah, well, like Brendan Bolton's exactly the same. You know, Chris Fagan. There's a lot of guys out at Hawthorn that have got that type of background.
Yeah.
Mark Evans, that sort of background. We feel like that education and teaching young men is the best way to develop your footy club.
Was the big step forward when you got your own team in Adelaide at Central District? That should have hastened your progress?
Yeah, well, I'd probably gone about things the wrong sort of way. I got an opportunity under Tim Watson at St Kilda and became an assistant coach before I'd coached my own side, and because I had aspirations administration-wise as well, I needed to find out whether I could coach, and it's very, very different from assistant coach to being the man in charge, and I wanted to find that out very, very early. So I went and coached the mighty Werribee Tigers and had a great 12 months there, but then went to Central Districts for 2 years, and that was just fantastic for my understanding of the game, understanding of what it meant to coach a club, and have enormous control and influence over the goings-on of a footy club. And they were a terrific footy club, Central District. They were part of a great competition in the SANFL. Very, very great history, and some great people met. And it was out of my comfort zone, had to go to Adelaide. I'd spent a lot of time in Adelaide as a kid, but met a lot of great people in the SANFL, and who I still spend a lot of time with and keep in contact with now, that have been very, very influential in my career.
We've got a table to show you, Clarko, which you'll be very proud of. Not only have you joined John Kennedy as a 3-time premiership coach at Hawthorn, but your strike rate's amazingly good. There's the list of games per flag, and you're 7th in history. You must be pretty proud of that.
Gee, Sid Bargain's done all right, didn't he?
We don't know why he got the flick.
He's going to
Only
be hard
60
to catch.
games, 2 flags, and that was it.
He's going to be hard to catch.
But that's a good strike rate in a very tough competition, isn't it?
Oh, listen, we're enormously proud of what we've been able to achieve at Hawthorn over 10 years, because it was not long ago that you mentioned in the opener that our club was on its knees in a potential merger with the Melbourne Footy Club, and the work that's been done by so many people. I mean, I know that the coach gets a lot of credit, and so do the players on grand final day, but there's just so many people that have helped this footy club get back to where it is today, and we never want to be back in those dark days of 1996 again.
Most notably, you, along with Alan Joyce, were the only ones representing that top end from the AFL professional era.
Yeah, well, it's a tough environment now. Yeah, with equalisation, and the goal really of the AFL is to have an AFL each club win once every 18 years, and so for us to be able to win 3 of the last 6 or 7 is enormously satisfying.
Clarko, where does the resilience of this group come from? We, on this show last week, we spoke about the challenges that the club's faced over the last 12 months, and if we go back to Lake getting suspended in the grand final, Franklin goes in the off-season, then you lose key players like Shields for 5 weeks, Lake for 7 weeks when he comes back, Mitchell for 8 weeks, Gibson for 10 weeks, Rioli for 11 weeks, second time round, and then a suspension again to Lake late in the year.
And the coach for 6 weeks.
And the coach for 5 weeks, was it?
5, yeah.
There's an unbelievable resilience shown by this group.
Oh, I think a lot of it comes from the stability of your football club, and I think that's unheralded in footy, but we've preached it at Hawthorn for a long period of time, and that's from board level right through the administration. If you can have stability, then you can overcome. Obviously, every club has them, and we've had them probably more so than most this year, and we had a lot in 2013 as well. A lot of injuries. We had 4 guys that had knee reconstructions in 2013, but somehow we're still able to get the job done, and it really comes down to the stability of your club. Continuity of staff members has been really important in our football department. Chris Fagan's been there for a long time. David Rath's been there for a long time. Andrew Russell is an outstanding fitness conditioning guy. He's been there for the duration that I've been there. I've been in my role for 10 years. That continuity, senior players, Hodge has been there the duration, Mitchell's been there the duration, Sewell has, Roughhead Lewis. When you got that continuity, then when things inevitably go wrong from time to time, at least those guys that have been there for a long time know what's going on. And even if Mitch is out for a while, or I miss for 5 weeks, it's just like, well, he's out for a little while, but we can replace him with another one in the interim.
And the amazing thing about those numbers is that's actually the second lowest total number of games lost through injury for the Hawks in the last 7 years, and it's 20 less than last year. It's just that they all happen to be key players. So I mean, the conditioning staff, as you say, under Andrew Russell, and the medicos and the physios, they've got a lot of responsibility for how successful this club's been.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier on about Cyril, Andrew Russell in particular, but our whole medical team and conditioning team, the physios, Andrew Lambert has been there a long time too, absolute ripper at our club, and those people don't get the credit that the coach and the players get, but they're enormously important to our footy club, and highly decorated men in their own right.
Clarko, spiritual leaders are almost a hackneyed expression these days, but if there is one that's typical, it's Luke Hodge. Must have been some special pride for you when Hodgie was announced as the Norm Smith medalist that day?
Yeah, no, I would have been rapt to see Mitch get it too, or
Louis.
Or Louis. He played a terrific game too, and we had 4 or 5 out. Sean Burgoyne started the game like a bomb. It was like there's no way he wanted to be involved in losing a grand final, Sean. I could tell that during the week. He had an indifferent sort of preparation for the Port Adelaide prelim. He had to. Such is his way, he attended a funeral of his grandmother on the Thursday before the Port Adelaide game, and he didn't want to use that as an excuse, but it was an indifferent preparation, and he was really determined to play well on grand final day. So we had a number of players, but without a doubt, he's universally admired, and I'm quite happy to put my hand up as being one of the ones that really.
He's nearly as popular as Matt Spanger, isn't he?
Did you hear the roar when he got up to get his medal? Loudest of them all.
Argentinian striker, mate. He's an absolute ripper. And it's all started in the VFL grand final last year. Halfway through the last quarter, there was this roar in the outer at the Etihad Stadium. I was thinking that it was a streaker or something, but all because this bloke was just he's just so highly regarded by our players, and I think a lot of people have got empathy for the difficulty of his journey and just persevering and hanging in there. And He's really enjoyed himself over the last couple of days. He's got a fantastic family, and they're just so proud of him, and we're really proud of him too.
He's taken the long road to get there, as you said, but he also had to work hard again this year. He wasn't a certainty from the start, and you've made him work.
Yeah, well, he's a very, very resilient character. He's had to overcome a lot of hurdles himself, and I suppose at the commencement of the year he said to himself, well, I've got a great opportunity at this football club to try and be part of something special, and he had a real steely resolve to want to make sure he was there at the end of the year, and to his absolute credit, he backed that up with some great performances through the year.
Clarko, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think Will Langford would develop as quickly as he has this season and perform at the level that he did in big games, including all the finals?
Yeah, listen, his progress in particular over the last 6 or 8 weeks, he started the season particularly well, and then he fell away for a little bit in the middle part of the season, and then in the last 6 or 8 weeks, he's been as influential as some of our more important and notable players in that period of time, and to kick 3 goals in the final as a midfielder is a super effort, and his role on the weekend was first class, as it has been for the last 5 or 6 weeks.
You've given him a couple of different roles. He tagged Joel Selwood reasonably, but Selwood got away from him a couple of times.
There, Eleanor and Chris watching proudly in the
very
background.
proudly, and then of course you've pushed him forward, negative roles, midfield, but the key was he was kicking goals through finals matches.
Yeah, and he's played a number of roles, and that's the exciting part about him. He's got a really good tank. He's got good speed. He's got great aggression. He hasn't played a lot of footy because he lived in Sydney for a big chunk of his life. He hasn't played a lot of footy, and as much as what the normal 8 to 18 years of age those lads would play, but so we just need to work a little bit on his polish and his decision making with the footy, but he's so flexible to play a number of roles. He can play forward, like we saw in the Geelong game, an important part of the game. He kicked a couple of goals, and again on the weekend he kicked 3 important goals, but we can throw him, we put him onto goods for a little while on the weekend when it looked like he might go into the middle and threaten, and that flexibility in his game, he can play back and in the midfield, and it's great for us as a coaching group to have that flexibility.
You've been a friend of the Segler family for 25 years? How difficult is it to tell anyone, but particularly a family friend, that he's going to miss a spot in the grand final?
Yeah, really tough. Yeah, really tough. I got enormous admiration for his father. Had spent a lot of time with him and a lot of other North mates from that era. Where the old Shinboners are still pretty close from that era in particular, and Segs is a real pivotal part of that group, and to have his son at our footy club has been great, and watching his progress and knowing that you're helping a mate of yours and his family develop his son is enormously rewarding, but it also comes with some disappointment too, that you've got to pick a side that you think is going to best give you.
What do you say? Tell me what you said to him.
I can't even recall, Mike, to be fair, other than it was a bit sharing the disappointment, because I think something along the lines was you're going to be disappointed with what you're going to hear now, mate, but you got to understand that I'm disappointed too, because I had a really heavy heart for him. And he hadn't been playing terribly either. He'd made contributions, and we just felt a bigger body in Benny McEvoy against Tippett and Pike was going to be important in the grand final. And
was this preordained, Clarko? Did you send McEvoy back to the second so he could get 100 minutes 3 or 4 weeks in a row to get him absolutely fit, or was it Segler's position to lose?
Well, we had 3 guys that, like, even at about round 18 when we played Sydney last time, Hale was in the second. So all 3 of those guys at different stages played some really good footy for us, and at different stages they've all found themselves in the seconds because their form wasn't as good at that point in time as the other 2, and all of them have made really even contributions. Some at times really good contributions for us, and others where they've just fallen away. I think maybe once, early in the season we might have tried all 3 on the one side, but we didn't do that very often.
So on the back of that, and the fact that Brendan Bolton also played a major role, do you think all the players that played for you this year should get premiership medals? Because it's a debate that continues to go on.
Yeah, I'd love to think that they could get some sort of recognition, but I suppose at the end of the day, grand final day, the way that it is, if we had a best of 7 or best of 3 series or something like that for the grand final, and whoever participated across those 3 games or 5 games or 7, whatever it was, that's impossible in our game. So I think at the end of the day, the player that still got the medal but didn't participate on grand final day, there'd still be something hollow and shallow about that. So I think it's just an unfortunate part of our game. But we try as much as we can to give recognition to. We mentioned at the end of the game, squads win premierships. We nearly sacrificed I don't want to downplay the importance and value of Western Bulldogs and Footscray's VFL win, but we nearly sacrificed a possible victory in that game for the benefit of the Hawthorn side the following week. Squads win premierships, and there's a lot of guys that made enormous contributions to our success this year that didn't participate on grand final day.
You talk about tough decisions like Segler in grand final week. You also have to make some tough decisions now on players' futures, and that's tough when you're coming off the emotion of a back-to-back premiership, when you need to remove that emotion from the decision-making process. One of the players that you'll obviously be talking about is Brad Sewell. Where does he sit now?
Yeah, well, listen, he's been a very, very decorated player at our footy club, and you talk about tough with Segler, for a bloke that he's given us so much, he's given me so much. He's given his guts for his footy club, and a highly, highly decorated servant of our club, and that was a really tough thing to do, to actually tell Sully leading into prelim final that the matchups weren't there for him in that particular game, and then to follow that up again this week to don't think you're going to get into the side this week. It just wasn't going to suit our balance, so that was tough. But we'll sit down with Sully over the course of the next 1 or 2 weeks and get his thoughts on what he wants to do, and we'll give our thoughts too. We need to make a few decisions on just the balance of our list, but we'll do that over the next week or two. But a lot will depend on what Sully wants to do.
Let's lighten it up a bit. I want to ask you a quiz question. What has Ben McAvoy got in common with Ian Stewart?
Both St Kilda players.
Good boy, you're warm. Yeah. They're
5.
2 of 18 former St Kilda players to play in premierships elsewhere.
It sounds like it's come from a disaffected St Kilda player to me.
They both wore number 5 for the Saints, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
See, you've got it covered. I'm glad we rehearsed that one.
Yeah. Are you in the market for anybody in particular, because you have been linked with Frawley?
Well, we expressed interest in James, but I think that there's a fair bit that's gone down the track in terms of Geelong and Fremantle, so we're not certain where we sit with James at the present time. And
has he got a formal offer
from us?
Yep.
Well, I'm not certain about
You're
it.
not certain?
No, if that was the case, it'd be Graham Wright's business. But
surely the coach would know whether there was a formal offer in front of a bloke from another club.
No, not that I'm my understanding at this point in time, Michael. But
Michael.
We'll have to wait and see.
What about your coaching panel?
I thought you said lighten things up a little bit.
Yeah, you're going to lighten them up. You had a bad joke, and now we're moving on.
That wasn't so bad.
That was a shocker. Brendan Bolton, do you think he'll be coaching somewhere else? Because Luke Beveridge is moving on. You're also going to have to find some replacements for your coaching staff.
Yeah, and that's in one way unfortunate part of success is that people that have been an important part of your club for a long period of time, like Boltaz and Bevo, enormous contributions that they've made in supporting our coaching staff and players, and this is a really special moment for the 2 of us because we had to do some hard yards in the middle of the year. He did a super job stepping in at a time of crisis for our club. But if they do get opportunities at other clubs, Dimmer has gone to Richmond and Leon's gone to GWS and obviously Simo's gone across the West Coast, and we just love the opportunities that those guys get. If they're aspiring to greater roles and greater responsibilities in the game, then we're delighted for them to get those opportunities. It'll leave a little bit of a void at our club and we'll have to fill them, but we've done that before, and we'll get the next coach in waiting.
We've got to go, but have you heard from Jeff Kennett? He sent you a congratulations.
Jeffrey Gibb, yeah, I saw Jeffrey Gibb at the after party on
Did you give him the
Saturday.
Jocko one and say you were wrong, Jeff?
Oh, listen, he and I have got a. You know, I quite often say, you know, he's from politics. I'm from footy. He over-promises and under-delivers in politics, and we try to under-promise and over-deliver. And so we come from different sides of the fence in a sense. But he's been absolute beauty for our footy club. We haven't always agreed along the journey, but there's always been a really, really healthy respect for the way we've gone about it.
Well done.
You got a mighty record. We salute you. Back-to-back premierships, and now 3 premierships in your kitty. Congratulations, and we might see you back here next year.
Good on you, Jared. Thanks, mate. Thanks, Precious. See you, bun.
Alistair Clarkson, our special guest. You'll be shouting Clarko later on, Mike. We'll be back with a bit more straight after this. Welcome back to On the Couch. Final show for 2014, and there's been plenty of things happening throughout the week. Mike, where do you want to start? I guess most notably the biggest news surrounded the Pies.
I don't know if it's the biggest news, but there are things simmering there. There's no doubt. We're all hearing it.
When Dane Beams walks out on the club, that's big.
That's big, but it doesn't seem to me, in what we're hearing, is that that's the only issue that they have. I think there's a lot of disquiet at Collingwood.
Disaffected players, do you think?
Hard to tell, but my view about this has always been, if so many people tell you the same thing often enough, it's usually got some substance.
Well,
I think we've got some real concerns for Eddie Maguire at Collingwood about keeping the place stable, because stability's been the byword while he's been in charge.
Well, we heard just how important it is from Alistair Clarkson, but there may be a domino effect for Beams, because I think Mitch Clark was almost across the line going to Collingwood.
He might be going to Geelong,
Well,
Jared.
Geelong's in the fold now, aren't they?
No doubt about that.
And he's almost the perfect player for Geelong. They're looking for the second tall. They're looking for a backup ruckman. If they've got Vardy and Clark to pick from, they're a significant chance.
You wouldn't want to lose Beams and Lumumba and not get your principal recruiting target in Clark, would you?
No, but they'll certainly be looking to play hardball with Beams and make sure they get well compensated. But if Clark's going to Geelong, does that mean Geelong have given up on James Frawley?
Well, I thought Frawley was going to your place. I thought Frawley was going to Hawthorn.
Why couldn't they get both, given the fact that Mitch Clark isn't going to be a high number as far as salary, isn't going to be a high number as far as draft pick? They could snag both, and that would be a big...
What about the ratio between the old blokes and the younger blokes? Is you happy with that? It's in balance?
Well, I think they're about the right age, aren't they? They're in their mid-20s.
That's if they believe they're still in the premiership window. I'm not sure I don't think they are.
Really?
No, I think that they were very good this year with a mediocre list.
Well, if you're going out for James Frawley and you're going out for Mitch Clark...
You're saying that we can win it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they can.
Well, are they going to help, Mike? Mitch Clark is a significant player. If Mitch Clark gets back to the form he played...
No, he was a significant player.
I understand that, but if he gets back to the form that he displayed with Melbourne and with the Brisbane Lions when he was almost All-Australian in the midfield, it helps a hell of a lot.
It's a big if. It's a very big if.
It's a massive if. That's why they won't pay the house for him.
If I can just change topic for a moment, Mike, what did you make of one of the biggest names in the game, Lee Matthews, and his perspective of James Hurd's future?
Well, whenever Lee says something, it's interesting, and when the topic is James Hird, it's more interesting again. Now, as I understand it, Lee said that Hirdy should fall on his sword.
Well, we'll get you to comment after we have a listen to exactly what Lee Matthews did say.
If I was James Hird, I'd be clearing the decks. Essendon need a fresh start. And yet they can't have a fresh start without James. And it's not about Essendon pushing him out. I think James himself should
fall on his own sword, do you think?
Just, fresh start.
That is
a massive statement.
Call.
He's saying he should move away.
Walk away.
I'm not sure where the fresh start is, though. I mean, Hirdy wants to coach, and he only wants to coach Essendon.
Yeah.
So it's either there's no fresh start. It's you're no longer a coach.
No, but Lee's saying, out Hird, and in presumably Mark Thompson.
Bomber.
Yeah.
Well, once again, a fresh start suggests you're going on and going to be another coach somewhere. That's not in...
I don't think... If Hirdy's got a contract for 2 years for $2 million, I don't think he's going to fall on his sword.
Jared White's going to be 32 when he pulls the boots on next year, Mike.
And they'll be in blue and white colours, Jared.
He's always been in blue and white.
Yeah. They'll be the blue and white stripes, Jason.
Good pick-up or not?
Paddy Ryder?
No. Jared White.
What about?
Is it a good pick-up?
I think it's a better pickup than the Geelong going for the older blokes. I think North are entitled to think that if one or two players can make them into a genuine grand final chance.
They need support for Drew Petrie in that forward 50, don't they? Desperately.
What about Sean Higgins? If he is linked to the Kangaroos, I wouldn't have thought they're getting much to fill the breach that they need to, and that's leg speed.
I totally agree with that. Yep. I think Higgins, I was a big Higgins fan 5 to 6 years ago. He's never justified it. I would tread warily there.
Probably a sameness about him and a few of the players that are already around the periphery at North, isn't it?
Liam Jones has been linked with the Blues. I'm still in the Liam Jones camp.
So am
I think he's worth persevering with and having a crack
I
with.
mean, playing full forward for the Doggies the last 5 years has been pretty difficult.
It has been, and he performed well in the VFL Grand Final. He's one of those that has teased us at times that he's ready to take the step and be a good player, and then for whatever reason, maybe it's lack of opportunity, lack of service, but hasn't always performed the way we expected him to.
Is the Bluey McKenna lack of appointment bordering on the farcical at the moment?
Look, you've got to feel for him in this situation. I mean, it's like he's on death row. But I think maybe there's a big fish that they're looking at. For example, Mark Thompson, and if they don't get him, they may well stay with Bluey. So he's wisely keeping his counsel, I reckon.
Did Bomber not say on 360 tonight he hasn't been approached by another club?
He didn't say he or his management wouldn't be open
If they
to
stay with him, surely they are then entitled, or they should be duty-bound to extend his contract. And it doesn't sound to me as if they are that enamoured with him that they can responsibly do that.
No, you wouldn't think they'd go to 2 years if they've taken this long to honour his existing contract.
We're going to take a break. It's Mike's final Mad Minute for season 2014 coming up straight after this. And he is mad, and we're going to be mad with him when he lets you know what he's done with his top 50. Shocking. That is rugby. That is rubbish.
Yes, there's bad games, but people know our football supporters are smart. They understand where it goes, that it evolves.
Gary Pert was quoted on the eve of the season saying that the club should win a premiership within 3 years.
He said that he expects for us to do it the next 3 years, and he expects us to be contenders in that time, and I agree with him.
Kennett said that Clarkson needed to do what players do and go back to the seconds.
But we were never going to allow it to happen, and tried to explain to Jeffrey that would look rather embarrassing in the football community.
Sammy Mitchell around a contest, you could hit him as hard as you want. You'd hit anyone around a contest, and they're expecting it.
So you worried yet about the possibility of an all-interstate grand final?
Well, I'm looking at the prospect of an all-Western Australian grand final.
I like it when you get angry, Jason.
I'm miffed.
I'm miffed.
Well, the weather's going to be good at Etihad with the roof on, Jason. Wouldn't we love that now, though, Jason? Out of Waverley and tries to get balls off during that.
Would you like to...
Tackling's an art form. Reward those that execute it well.
I think you're paying lip service to concussion.
When you say we're paying lip service to it,
well,
I take
I'm
umbrage
seeing blokes
to
go back onto the ground 10 minutes after they've clearly been affected with knocks to the head.
And I'm saying that medical officer on the sideline is the best person to judge that.
There are plenty of people wanting someone to address the rolling maul elements, and you're the man to address
with the rolling maul.
No, I'm obsessed with AFL football and the indigenous elements of that game, which are being lost.
Life after football for Jared Roughhead.
I wouldn't mind looking like you guys in a suit maybe one day, and maybe the pink top will look good to me one day. What do you reckon?
Some of the highlights of our 13th year on the couch. Mike, it's over to you. Hopefully you're not too mad on your
I'm not mad at all. Jason, I'm reflective tonight.
Reflective?
Reflective on how lucky we all are to be involved in this great game, and reflective about how loyal and our supporter base has been over such a long journey. So I'm very, very happy in this position at this minute.
I like it when you're happy, Michael.
Question without notice, what did you think of the pre-game entertainment?
Tick for me.
Didn't see it. I was the one here working.
Well, it wasn't received all that well in the media, and if the Herald Sun's 50-50 letters is any guide, have a look at this one that was sent in. Whoever hired Ed Sheeran should admit they meant to hire Mike Sheehan. And one for you, Jared. Nathan Jones at the MCG performs better than Tom. So not everyone enjoyed it.
I don't mind that.
Hey, we do need to talk
thought Ed
about,
was all right.
Before we go, your top 50 comes out Thursday in the Herald Sun.
It does.
Jared, a little birdie's told me that maybe half a dozen players from the pre-season top 15
I knew we were going to get mad.
didn't even make the 50.
Are you mad? This is couch, not
True or
bounce.
false? True or false?
That's true. They haven't lived up to their expectations.
You boned them completely.
Yep.
You going to name
it's a tough school here.
Is there a message? There's always a message.
There is.
Eric McKenzie, I reckon, will be your message.
Under heavy pressure from you.
Mike, I've got to say thank you to the good people that put this show together. Billy, the producer, Lib, the makeup artist, Christian, JJ, John, Mike, Dave Dunbar, and Men's Club, who dressed Jason in the velour jacket. Have a great night. We'll see you next year.